When you spend 30 hours straight behind the wheel, the road stops being just asphalt. It turns into its own separate universe, cut off from the rest of the world. I am a night minibus driver on the Przemyśl Paris route. Over the years in this job, I've transported thousands of people and realized a strange thing. Passengers don't board my cabin just to get from one country to another. They get in to leave behind the things that have been weighing heavily on their chests for so long. They look at my back in the dim light of the cabin and see more than just a driver. They see a silent witness and a confessor who will never judge them and whom they will most likely never meet again in their lives. The bus station in Przemyśl bid us farewell with a thick, cold fog and a light autumn drizzle. It was 11 in the evening. The platform was gradually emptying. The dim border lanterns could barely pierce through this gray wall of moisture. People were hastily throwing heavy suitcases into the trunk of my white Sprinter, tucking their noses into their jacket collars and wishing to be in the warmth as quickly as possible. I closed the back doors, walked around the vehicle, shook the water off my cap, and sat behind the wheel. The cabin already smelled of hot tea from the vending machines, wet fabric, and mint candies. 10 passengers were settling into their seats. Some were putting on headphones, some were pulling hoods over their eyes, trying to fall asleep even before we started moving. I checked the mirrors, turned on the fog lights, smoothly pressed the gas pedal, and guided the van onto the dark highway. Ahead lay almost 2,000 kilometers of highway, coffee from a thermos, quiet music from the radio, and a long, sleepless night. I love night shifts. When the world around falls asleep, all that remains is the thin beam of my headlights, catching the road markings and signs out of the darkness. During these hours, passengers often cannot sleep, especially those who are leaving home for the first time or those who are running away from some of their own troubles. Sooner or later, someone can't stand the silence of the back seats. They quietly get up, make their way through the narrow aisle to the front, and sit to my right on the double passenger seat, the place I have long called the confession seat. The first to come tonight was an elderly man named Vasil. We had just passed Tarnow when he quietly moved to the front, carefully holding a paper cup of hot tea. He was silent for a long time, just watching the raindrops scatter from the windshield under the sweeps of the wipers. Wash, wash, wash. I didn't push for conversation. Years at the wheel have taught me to read passengers subtly. Some need silence, while some just need to feel that there is a living, strange, and therefore safe human being next to them in this darkness. "It's my first time traveling so far, son," he finally said softly, without turning his head. His voice was hoarse, deep, and very tired. My daughter took me to live with her in the suburbs of Paris. She says it's calmer there. The doctors are better. I'll live out my old age. But I can't. I have an orchard left back in the Lviv region. The apple trees blossom so beautifully this year, you know? Who will look after them? Who will dig up the earth in the spring? I nodded, keeping my eyes on the wet asphalt shining under the lights of oncoming trucks. "I understand, Father," I replied quietly. "An orchard is like a child. It needs human hands, care. Without its master, the land quickly grows lonely." And then he poured his heart out. For the next 2 hours, as we flew past Krakow and Katowice, Vasil told me his whole life. He spoke about his wife, who passed away 2 years ago, and how hard it was to wake up every morning in an empty house, where every corner reminded him of past happiness. He shared his greatest, deepest fear, becoming a burden to his own daughter in a foreign, completely unfamiliar France. He was afraid of not understanding a foreign language, afraid of getting lost in the noisy Paris metro, afraid of feeling like an unwanted guest under a foreign sky. I just listened. I knew he didn't need my advice or life experience. He just needed to speak these fears out loud here, in this cabin, so they would stop seeming so giant and deadly. When we stopped at the first gas station on the German border, Vasil smiled warmly, patted me on the shoulder in a fatherly way, and went back to the cabin. He fell asleep almost instantly, and his face was no longer so tense. Pause. We crossed the border into Germany around 3 in the morning. An incredibly thick fog rolled onto the highway. The white milk completely swallowed the road, reducing visibility to just a few meters. I slowed down, turned on the fog lights, and focused as much as possible. In moments like this, the tension rises. But it is precisely in this fog that the road often decides to reveal new human secrets. A young girl quietly sat in the seat next to me. Her name was Christina. She was just over 20. She wrapped herself in a huge woolen scarf and kept spinning a switched-off mobile phone in her hands. "A difficult road, isn't it?" she asked quietly, watching the white patches of fog tear against the hood of our van. "A road is just a road, Christina," I replied calmly, casting a quick glance her way. "The main thing is to know where you are going, and to whom." She sighed bitterly, leaning her forehead against the cold side window. "And what if I'm going nowhere, running away from what I ruined myself?" I kept quiet, giving her the space to continue when she was ready, and she began to speak. Fast, swallowing her words as if she was afraid I would stop or interrupt her. Christina told me about her complicated, tangled relationship with her fiancé, about a stupid misunderstanding and a betrayal she couldn't forgive, and how in one day she packed a single small suitcase and bought a ticket for my ride to Paris, where her distant aunt lives. There was so much pain, resentment, and absolute childish confusion in her voice that it seemed this fog outside the window was a direct reflection of her own soul. She felt broken into tiny pieces. "I just don't know how to start all over again in a strange city," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "It feels like I left my whole heart at home, and only an empty shell will arrive in Paris, one that doesn't know how to do anything and doesn't want anything." I held the steering wheel with my left hand, and with my right, I carefully pulled a pack of paper tissues out of the glove compartment and handed them to her. "You know, Christina," I said quietly, staring into the white wall ahead, "over the years on this route, I've seen thousands of people. Some travel for big money, some for a fashionable education. But the best, strongest life stories always begin precisely when a person leaves with empty hands and a broken heart. Paris is a strange city. It knows how to put people together piece by piece, like a mosaic. Main thing, don't be afraid of being empty at the start. Emptiness can always be filled with something completely new and beautiful. It's much harder to build something where everything is already packed with old junk and resentments." She took the tissue, wiped her tears, and looked at my profile in the dim cabin for a long time. Then she said quietly, barely audibly, "Thank you. I felt like I was completely alone in this cold world, and you just listened and heard me." When we passed Erfurt and the sky in the east began to turn pink, the fog finally cleared. The sun slowly rose over the German hills, flooding the cabin with warm, golden morning light. Christina was napping beside me, her head resting comfortably against the headrest. Her face was calm and relaxed. She had finally found her temporary peace and quiet on this long journey. I looked at the sunbeams playing on the windshield and felt a strange but very pleasant tiredness. During this night, I had once again let several foreign destinies pass through me. I learned about old Vassel's fears, about Christina's broken heart, about the hidden hopes of the other passengers who slept peacefully to the quiet music from my radio. Being a driver on an international route is not just about turning the wheel, watching the road markings, and fueling up on time. It means holding a balance, not just on a slippery road, but also in the souls of the people who have trusted you with their journey and their lives. I am their temporary shelter, their quiet shore amidst a turbulent and unpredictable ocean of life. I like knowing that after simple conversations with me, people step out onto the platform in Paris at least a little lighter. They leave their heaviest, darkest thoughts here, on the passenger seat of my Sprinter, and step into their new life with a clear gaze. Pause. When we finally parked near the Gare de l'Est in Paris, the city welcomed us with the noise of big streets, the cries of gulls over the Seine, and the unmistakable smell of fresh pastries and coffee from the nearest small bistros. The passengers began to slowly climb out of the cabin, stretching after the long journey and gathering their suitcases. Vasil shook my hand firmly and warmly by the trunk and said quietly, "Thank you, son, for the talk tonight. Because of you, I realized that my orchard will always stay with me, in my heart, wherever I am. Now I'm not afraid to meet my daughter." Christina was the last to get out. She smiled warmly at me, and there was no longer that cold hopelessness in her eyes with which she had boarded the bus in Przemyśl. "I'll make it, right?" she asked quietly as we said goodbye, adjusting my favorite woolen scarf, which I had lent her during the night. Absolutely, Christina, I answered firmly. Don't even doubt it. Your new story begins right now. I closed the doors of the now empty cabin and returned to my driver's seat. Ahead of me lay a few hours of rest in a Parisian hotel before the return trip back to Przemyśl. I turned off the engine, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath of this special, familiar smell of upholstery, diesel, and coffee, which had long since become my true home. The next time you get into a night minibus and feel like your heart is breaking from pain, resentment, or fear of the future, don't rush to hide inside yourself and bury your eyes behind a phone screen. Look at the driver. Maybe he is just silently waiting for you to move to the front and tell him your story. The road is always ready to listen and accept any burden you carry. And the driver will simply help you carry your tired soul to the right stop. Short pause. Have a safe journey, all of us. And never be afraid to leave your worries behind on the night highways. End of sound.